another video in the new garage. We got Caleb here today, and we're actually going to be working on doing some Brembos for him. And they're powder coated, which you can see here. They look pretty sweet. Got the RTR logo and whatnot. So that's going to be what we're installing today. New rotors and pads to go with it. And then as well as the stainless steel brake lines, all four corners, and then we're gonna have to bleed the brakes and whatnot. Should be a good time, and I just wanted to make a video of the whole process of the Brembo swap for anybody out there that's interested in doing so. So let's get to it. First things first, like normal, always put the car up, jack stands, whatever you got. And then the next step, I guess, of this job is you just want to pull the wheels off, so we'll get to doing that. We're going to now start working on taking these calipers off. You got a 12 millimeter right here that holds the caliper to the bridge, and then a 15 millimeter is what holds the bridge to the steering knuckle. So we will take those off, and then once we've done that, we're just going to set the caliper off to the side so that we can worry about then getting the brake line disconnected, because we are replacing the brake line up to the caliper as well. Steering just turned.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you want me to lock it?
No, it's good. So now that that's cracked, we'll finish taking it off, and it'll be easier for a quick exchange on the new caliper. Because we want to minimize how much time we have these brake lines exposed so that the fluid doesn't drain out too much up to the ABS unit, because that's where you're going to have problems when it comes to bleeding the brakes from switching to Brembos, is if you let air into the ABS unit, because it's extremely hard to bleed on your own. You can take it to a shop and get it bled pretty easily, but you can see it's already starting to drip. And this is tight, right? Okay, cool. The brake line is attached to this ABS sensor, so you want to disconnect that. It just pops out with the two little brackets so that when you pull this out, it's disconnected and it doesn't damage anything. So now that we have that, we just got to disconnect the brake line from the hard line up here. Which, to do that, you want to utilize flare nut wrenches, or some people call them crow's feet. Yeah, 13. Same idea, lefty loosey, so you just crack it from up here. I want to loosen that bracket first too. So then we just got these plastic clips that hold this little plastic splash shield thing in here. We just need to get these clips loose so that we can pull down and get to this bracket for the brake hard line. So now it's loose. It's pretty much just finger loosen it until it comes out. Alright, so that's disconnected. Just pull that out. And then we want to do it quickly. So hopefully we'll be able to tell if that seals or not, if it continues to drip. But the purpose of that is you just throw that on there so it doesn't continue to leak too much while you're doing the rest of the work. And you want to minimize how much brake fluid gets in all the different places, because brake fluid is very corrosive, especially around paint. It'll actually ruin the paint, make it bubble up and then just flake off. That should be all loosened, and then we can pull the caliper all the way out. Just want to try and drain it into the pan. Now that that's off, we're going to finish loosening the brake line so we can get this bleeder bolt off, because we need that for the new caliper. Alright, so we finished separating the brake line from the caliper, because we need the bleeder screw, which you can possibly see that has a hole in the middle and on the sides. That's what allows the fluid to flow through the screw to the caliper. And they come with crush washers on there, and I typically use I use my wire cutters and needle nose, but mainly wire cutters to get the crush washers off, because they crush when you compress or tighten the bolt. So they create like a nice sealed surface between the brake caliper and line. So they're not reusable, they're one-time use. So if you are doing this and you're not getting new brake lines, typically you'll have to buy new crush washers so that you can put new ones in when you reassemble. But now, since we bought stainless steel brake lines, it comes with new crush washers. So you set one on the outside, and then you do the brake line. So one mounts on the outside surface and one between the bolt and the caliper. So you do like an Oreo or a sandwich, whatever you want to call it. and then tighten down the bolt with the new crush washers into the caliper. We're not going to tighten it all the way down yet because I want to make sure that we have it on the car, so we've got it nice and positioned where we want it, so that when we finally finish tightening it, it's got a nice like orientation in regards to where the caliper is going to be sitting. So like we don't want it too close to the strut or too far out kind of thing. Once the caliper's off, the rotor just comes right off. Before we do the rotor, I forgot a step. Since we are going to the Brembos, it's different dust shields, so it's a little bit larger dust shield, so we just have like 3 bolts that hold the dust shields in place. So, new dust shield in place, and we will go ahead and put the new rotor on. Don't worry about the surface rust. If anyone watching is like, oh my god, we are going to spray it down with brake clean just to make sure it's got a nice clean surface, but this is literally just surface rust where the brake pad probably rested on the rotor, and so the first time he hits the brakes, that's literally all going to come right off. So you've got your 2 pins which will hold the brake pads in place, and then you've got a spring which is like an anti-rattle clip, and this is going to basically sit on top of these, and it'll keep the brake pads from bouncing around. Went ahead and cleaned those up because when you're doing new pads or Brembos, it's just a good habit to go ahead and clean them up. Caliper grease on these, and then we're going to assemble the caliper and brake pads so that it's ready to bolt onto the car. Gonna spread it around, nice amounts on the back. Does it bother you that your calipers are getting grease and nastiness on them yet?
Yes.
I'm sure it does. It's just one of those things you got to deal with because it's brakes and they get dirty either way. And then the slide pins come in from the back, so you do. I think the powder coating has made this hole smaller.
When it comes to you banging on the powder coat, yes, I'm screaming no.
I wasn't hitting the powder coat though. I was doing everything I could not to. So now that that 1 pin is in, you can see it kind of rests in there. I mean, it still has a little further to go, but it'll be easier once it's on the car. So we take the other pin, and same deal, slide it in. So you just push down on this clip. Pin can slide over the top because that's how it holds this clip in place. Alright, so now that the pads are assembled, we should be able to just go ahead and finish bolting this up onto the car. So we actually realized that there was a slight mistake with how the Brembos were reassembled. The line was on like the wrong side, so we had to switch the bleeders and lines from the calipers around, because the brake line is actually oriented on the bottom. And just want to get it nice and snug. We're not going to tighten it down all the way yet, just because we want to make sure we like where it's oriented. So once you tighten this with those new crush washers, like you'll get resistance, but like the nut will, or the screw will still keep going because it's crushing the washers to the surface that they're mounting between. So you don't want to like go crazy tight. Like once it starts to resist, go like a little bit more past that so that you actually crush the washer. We are going to go ahead and reattach the hard line. So we've got that vacuum clap on the hard line here. We're just going to pull that off and be ready to quick swap it to the new brake line, just like so. And then this just screws back in like it unscrewed before. Feels pretty good. Doesn't need to be super crazy tight, so there we go. So now that we've got this all finished up, I just got to tighten this 1 bolt right here to tighten down the bracket. And once that's done, we'll do the other side, and I'll show you guys the rear brake lines once we get to those, as well as the bleeding process. So we did want to do like a quick weight comparison between the factory calipers with pads versus the Brembos. So 10.8 on the front Brembo with the pads. Here's the front rotor. Jesus Christ. 25 pounds. Alright, we're going to weigh the stock stuff real quick. 20.8. And 11 pounds with the brake pads on this stock caliper. Alright, so now we're moving on to the rear brakes here, and just wanted to show you first things first. We've got the speed sensor, or wheel speed sensor, so we're just going to disconnect that off the brake line. It just kind of slid off of this piece here, and with that we'll then loosen the bracket. And then we want to get this brake line started like so. You see the fluid coming out. Let's see if we can speed this up a little bit. That's that. Put that there. Then we got the vacuum cap, which you just slide on to the line to kind of help deter from leaking. We've got the bottom bolt for the brake line to the caliper. Gotta get that free. And once this comes all the way out, a bunch of fluid will drop from the caliper. Like so. And then it is the same thing on this one as it was the front. I'm sure some kind of internet mechanics will tell me I'm doing this wrong, but who knows? It's worked fine for me. If anyone out there has done this before, feel free to comment down below if you had a better way of doing it. And then the way that I do this one, it's kind of sketch, but it works every time. Basically get the cutters right on the bottom of the bolt, on top of the washer. And squeeze real hard. There we go. I popped it. Didn't get it all the way off. A couple times it's just flown off. So then you just want to get your new washers. And then you just start screwing the bleeder screw back. Or not bleeder screw, but I don't even know what this screw is kind of called. There's a name for it, but the one with a hole in it. The holy screw. Again, once it starts to get tight, just can't keep going. Think about where your brake line's positioned when you start to torque down on it too, because it's going to want to rotate. We're going to pull this cap back off of the hard line. Make sure we're quick so we don't lose too much fluid. Alright, that seems nice and tight. So now we shall just put the 10mm bolt to put the bracket back up into place. Everything is now tightened down. Just going to put this sensor back in place, and that's a wrap. There we go. Clips into place, and then we'll just zip tie this down onto the brake line, and then we'll move on to the bleeding process. Alright, so we're going to start by showing you guys the two-person process on the bleeding of the brakes. What I would recommend, just an old like Gatorade type bottle of some sort, and then just drill a hole in the cap and get some hose tubing. Whatever fits your bleeder well. You want to have a nice like kind of tight seal around that bleeder. So this is the setup I typically run. So with two-person, I'll tell Caleb to pump until he's got pressure in the pedal, and then he'll hold that. I'll crack the bleeder once the fluid kind of like has its initial I don't know, run through. Then I'll tighten the bleeder, he'll let off the pedal, and then start to pump the pedal again. Pump. Hold. Pump. So that's more or less your standard two-person pump process. So we'll go, you always want to start furthest from the master cylinder and work your way up. So we'll go rear passenger, driver side, rear, front passenger, and then driver side, front. Alright, finish the driver side rear. Now we're moving up to the front Brembos here. Now the way I do this is I always go furthest from the caliper first. So I start on the outside bleeder and then move the inside. According to the internet, like if you're doing it from dry, it's just faster to do the inside than the outside. But we went ahead and primed it, so this caliper should already have lots of fluid in it already. So we're just going to go outside then inside just to keep it systematic that way. So whenever you're ready, Caleb, you can go ahead and pump up. Pump. Pump. Alright, so we finished the bleeding process. It's already nighttime though, so I think we'll just take it out for a quick spin, make sure everything feels okay. But that's more or less it for that job. Alright, car's loaded on the ground. There's our first look of the car with the new Brembo calipers. But yeah, so far, those look pretty cool. They got the nice RTR logo. My idea. Alright guys, this is the next day. We did finish the brakes. What we actually had to do and this is why I wanted to talk about it, is there was air in the ABS unit, like the module or whatever, and it's not something you can just typically bleed out, because the way that the ABS works is there's little valves that have to open up, and the only way they open up is by activating ABS. So in that situation, Caleb and I, we had to basically take the car out, find a gravel road or a field, get the car up to, you know, 15-20 miles an hour at least, and then you just stomp on the brakes on the gravel road, and what that does is that activates the ABS. You'll feel the pedal actuate, and you want to do that a couple times, and then take it back and then bleed it again, because what that does is once you activate the ABS like that, you've now allowed the air to cycle through the unit and not stay trapped anymore, and once you've done that, the air will now be in the lines where you can actually bleed the air out like normal. Problem solved. Brembos feel great. We went and took it for a test spin. I think Caleb's pretty happy.
At 4 a.m. in the morning.
It wasn't 4, it was like 3. Here's a couple pictures of the setup afterwards, give you a better idea what it looks like. So that's pretty much it for the video. Hopefully it was educational for you guys. You were able to learn something from it, and it gives you some ways of troubleshooting Brembos if you do the install and you have issues with bleeding the brakes. So definitely hit the like button if it did help, or if you just enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the little bell so you can be notified when I post videos. And that's pretty much it. So thanks again for watching, guys. Peace out. We'll catch you next time.